February 17. 364. Flavius Claudius, the Roman emperor, died at Dodosdena, aged 33. He was elected by the army, on the death of Julian, and accepted the throne upon the assurance that the soldiers would embrace Christianity. He was suffocated in his bed by the fumes of a fire which had been made to dry the chamber, after a reign of only 8 months. 1461. Battle of St. Albans, 21 miles from London, between the Lancastrians headed by the Queen, Margaret, and the Yorkists under the Earl of Warwick. The latter were defeated. 1564. Michelangelo Buonarroti, the painter and architect, died at Rome, aged 89. He was of an illustrious family, studied painting and sculpture, and for a great number of years was employed by the popes in decorating the most superb edifices of Rome. At the age of 60 he was induced to attempt the Last Judgment, which is his masterpiece. In architecture, St. Peter's and the Capitol are monuments of his ability. As a sculptor and poet also he is entitled to no mean place in the niche of fame. He was one of those favorites of nature, who combine in their single persons the excellence of many highly gifted men. 1571. An earthquake in Herefordshire, England, removed the hill containing 26 acres to a considerable distance, overturning everything before it and continuing in motion several days. 1600. Giordano Bruno, an Italian philosopher, burned at Rome. He entered the order of the Dominicans, but his satires upon the lives of the monks drew upon him their persecutions, and he fled to the Calvinists. These in turn were excited against him by his paradoxes. After visiting Paris, London and Württemberg, he returned again to Italy, and fell into the hands of the Inquisition, by whom he was condemned to be burnt, and suffered death, which he might have averted by recantation, with the greatest fortitude. His philosophical writings, which have become very rare, display a classical cultivation of mind, a deep insight into the spirit of ancient philosophy, wit and satire, as well as a profound knowledge of mathematics and natural philosophy. With all his talent and erudition he was a pantheist. 1621. The Plymouth colonists met for the purpose of settling military affairs, and chose Miles Standish their captain. 1673. Jean-Baptiste Poquelin de Molière died at Narbonne, where the French theatre at that time began to flourish, through the talents of the great Corneille. He imbibed a strong passion for the stage. He became a distinguished comedian and dramatic writer, and died within 4 hours after personating a character in his play of the Hypochondriac. 1680. Denzil, Lord Hollis, an eminent English patriot, died. He nobly maintained and defended the rights and privileges of the House of Commons, of which he was a member, against the arbitrary measures of Charles I and his favorites. He was also a political writer. 1710. George Bull, an eminent English writer and preacher, died. 1720. John Hughes, an English poet and dramatist, died. He was a contributor to the Tatler, Spectator and Guardian. His last production, The Siege of Damascus, was performed with splendid success on the very night the author died suddenly. He was eulogized by Pope. 1735. Niccolò Fortiguera died, an Italian prelate, and one of their best poets of the early part of the last century. 1739. George Whitfield, the celebrated Methodist, preached from a field pulpit to colliers in Kingswood, near Bristol. 1758. John Watkins died at Bristol, England, aged 78. He was heir to a considerable estate, which being denied possession of, he made a vow never to shave till he enjoyed it, and kept his promise to the day of his death. He went by the name of Black John. After his death there was found upwards of 200 weight of halfpence, and silver, besides a quantity of gold, which he had amassed as a public beggar. 1759. Thomas Siddall, a gardener at Chester, England, dug up a potato weighing 17 pounds 4 ounces, measuring 38 inches in circumference, and 47.5 in length. 1772. Convention between Frederick II of Prussia and Catherine II of Russia signed, for the partition of Poland. This was afterwards acceded to by Austria, and ratified by the Polish Diet. 1773. An appearance similar to the aurora borealis first witnessed in the southern hemisphere, by Mr. Forster, who accompanied Captain Cook. 1782. Action between the British fleet, Admiral Hughes, and the French fleet, M. de Suffrein, in which the British suffered severely. 1794. Fort Nelly in Corsica attacked and carried by the British under Lord Hood. 1796. James Macpherson, the Scottish poet, died. Distinguished for his translations and imitations of Gaelic poems, the principal of which is Figel. 1797. The Spanish Admiral Apodaca compelled to burn several large battleships in the Gulf of Paria, to prevent their falling into the hands of the British fleet, under Harvey. 1804. Jean Moreau arrested at Paris, on an accusation of being concerned in the conspiracy of Picquet and Georges. 1805. Action between the British frigate Cleopatra, 32 guns, and the French frigate Ville de Milan, pierced for 52 but mounting 26 guns. The Cleopatra was captured, with the loss of 20 killed and 38 wounded. 1810. Amboina, the capital of the Moluccas, surrendered to the British, together with 49 merchant vessels in the harbor. It was not the first time it had fallen into the hands of the British. 1810. Rome annexed to France, the city to rank as the second in the French Empire. 1814. Battle of Nantes, between Napoleon and the Russians under Count Wittgenstein. Same day, the Russians under Palin attacked the French at Marmont under Georges. 1814. The castle of Jaca in Urgan capitulated to the Spanish chief Francisco Espas y Mina, who took 84 brass cannon. 1818. Henry Obuka, a Sandwich Islander, died at Cornwall, Connecticut, aged 26. He was a member of the Foreign Mission School and has been made the subject of a memoir. 1827. John Henry Pestalozzi, one of the most distinguished men of modern times for his efforts in the cause of education, died at Brugg. He was born at Zurich, in Switzerland, and devoted his life and property to the education of poor children. His system is not the best in use. 1828. Henry Gottlob Körner died, aged 50. An eminent German theologian. 1835. 5 volcanoes burst forth simultaneously in Central America, attended with tremendous earthquakes, which sunk 3 large towns, besides many villages. The air was so obscure with smoke, that the inhabitants were obliged to grope their way with torches for 8 days. The lava in some places ran a distance of 60 leagues, destroying everything in its course. In Alentejo they thought the day of judgment had come, and more than 300 marriages took place among people who had previously lived in a state of concubinage. 1836. Corn planter, Garyanwaga, a celebrated Indian chief, died at the Seneca Reservation, aged about 100. At an early period of the Revolutionary War he took an active part on the side of the Americans, and ever after manifested great friendship for the whites. He and his associate Red Jacket were for many years the counselors and protectors of the interests of their nation. 1839. William Adam, a Scottish statesman, died. As Member of Parliament he opposed conciliatory measures with the refractory American colonies. 1840. Joseph Chitty, a very eminent special pleader and author of many laborious and learned works in the profession of the law, died in London, aged 65. 1843. In British India 2,800 British troops defeated 22,000 Baluchis. 1862. William Thomson, a distinguished naturalist, died, aged 46. He published The Birds of Ireland, and had undertaken to write the natural history of that country. 1852. Eruption of Mount Loa, Sandwich Islands, which continued a long time undiminished. 1855. The Russians under Ostansakhan attacked Eupatoria, defended by the Turks under Omar Pasha, and were repulsed with loss. 1856. John Braham, a celebrated English vocalist, died, aged 82. He was the son of a German Jew, and his proper name was Abraham. He made his first appearance at Covent Garden in 1787.